Hi everyone, welcome, welcome. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to empower yourself in 2025 so you can create the life you want, the relationships you want, and the work you want. Just to create your own life, you have to take your power back from people, places, and things that deplete you. So, in this live, I will teach you how to self empower. I will give you steps to self empowerment in this live. So, let's let people join in, and I'm really excited to dig into it. This does come from my book, The Five Self Love Languages, the blueprint for becoming the source and the magnet of love, freedom, and abundance. And I'm excited to show you how to empower yourself in 2025. So let's get into it. So, first, let's understand what is self empowerment, right? Self empowerment is it's a journey of divine purpose. So, when we speak to ourselves with self love, when we treat ourselves with compassion, forgiveness, and treat ourselves like we are our own best friend, our own parent, guide, nurturer. Let me erase this for a second. Okay. So, self empowerment really is a radical act of reclaiming your power, your agency, and your ability to direct and lead your life and yourself, all parts of you, with confidence, with groundedness, with surety, because you know what you're doing, you know what you're about, you know what you're grounded in, you know where you're headed. So it's really self empowerment is the result of really knowing yourself and where you're headed and doing so with love and nurturance and compassion, right? So so use the energy of the new year to create that momentum to empower yourself, right? Self empowerment really is about reclaiming your autonomy, your agency, your sovereignty, right? If trauma robs you of your sense of power, autonomy, and leaves you feeling helpless and victim of the circumstance or victim of the people around you, self-empowerment is the antidote to self-sabotage. So the language of self-empowerment, the steps and the process of self-empowerment that I will share with you gives you the confidence, allows you not only to take responsibility for your actions and own your narrative. You take the power back from those who hurt you. You take the power back from those who are negative towards you, or or are depleting you. You take actions that shift you from passive to active engagement in your life. You're not just a passive scroller standby in your life. You take active engagement and participation in your life. So, self empowerment or taking your power back is really an act of courage where you step into the driver's seat, even if you are scared, you are you don't know how, right? So you decide, you become willing to step into the driver's seat and give yourself that permission to make decisions that serve your highest good, right? So self empowerment or empowerment means you embrace responsibility for your life. You take accountability for all your successes, all your challenges, and you move in your life with that belief that you're really capable. You are capable of creating meaningful growth in your life. You are capable of creating meaningful um, growth and changes. You can create your own life. Self empowerment really is the fifth self love language, And it involves recognizing your worth, your capacity, your capability. And it's about cultivating self belief, trusting your intuition, building that confidence to assert your needs and your desires, right? So, really, self empowerment, or your personal power, agency, sovereignty, your self expression, your self autonomy, all that comes when you get to know yourself and you accept all parts of yourself. There's a lot of power in loving yourself through thick and thin. There's a lot of power in loving all parts of you, even the parts that the world has rejected, right? So, how do we speak the language of self empowerment? Or what do I do, right? That's the $1 million question. Like, what do I do to empower myself and take the power back from people, places, and things that deplete me? So, the step process to cultivate self empowerment in your life is: number one, you rewrite your personal narrative from a place of power, right? So, a personal narrative is a story that you tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and these stories and beliefs about ourselves shape our life. They shape our reality, right? Trauma wraps often like distorts this narrative, and we believe in limited beliefs like I'm not enough, good things don't really happen to me, I don't deserve happiness, I can't trust myself, I can't trust other people, I can't trust the world, right? All these narratives of lack and limit that we have, they have come about from trauma, from what happened to us, what other people told us, right? And we internalized all that. We internalized the language of trauma, of limit, of other people's beliefs on us, right? So the first step of self empowerment is to reclaim this narrative by rewriting your story from a place of strength, from a place of resilience, from self worth. Because you're not your trauma, you are not defined by your past. You are limiting yourself by your past and what happened to you, but you don't have to do that anymore. You can bring yourself to a place of really understanding that this happened and it defined my past, but now I can take one day at a time and redefine who I am. What is my identity apart from what happened to me? What do I do? And move so I can move on and separate myself from what happened, or the victim mentality, right? That I was hurt and now I am a hurt person. So attune to yourself, attune to your pain, all that inner turmoil. Be present to that with compassion, forgiveness, kindness of a higher self, of a parent that looks at you and says, yes, they did do this. They did abandon you. They did betray you. They were not there for you, and that all that did really happen, but now you can be present, available to rewrite your story, right? So the first step really is to write out all your limiting beliefs in relationships, with money, in career, in your growth, so whatever is important to you, right? So take one thing. Maybe relationship is important to you, or your job, or money, or right. So whatever limiting belief that is most dominant in your life, you replace that limiting belief, you challenge that limiting belief, and you ask yourself, Is this rooted in truth? Is this limiting belief really rooted in truth, in reality? Or is this remnant of my past trauma? So you replace them with empowering statements, right? This happened to me and I am capable of moving forward. Yes, my heart was broken in love, but I do deserve love, right? I betrayed myself or I didn't trust myself in the past, but I'm worthy of trusting myself. I trust my intuition, right? So for example, instead of saying really can't do this healing work, you shift your language, right? To I'm learning how to do this. This is very challenging and I'm open and willing to invite this change, this growth through doing the work. So, words really are very powerful because they define and solidify your thoughts. Our thoughts come and go. The only thoughts that become beliefs is when you believe them, when you buy into that thought, right? Somebody might have put this thought in you that you're not quite all that. But then what you do with that judgment is what will define how your life plays out. If somebody important in your life told you you were not good enough and you trusted them enough and you internalized what they said, now you're going to define your life with that internal belief and you wouldn't even know where that came from, right? So the important point here I'm trying to make is that you rewrite your personal narrative from a place of maturity, from a place of power, and from a place of an adult, higher self speaking, not from a place of wounded inner child. Because what happens is that many times we limit ourselves based on what our wounded inner child is telling us, right? So now as you heal and you do the work and you get ready to take your power back, you blend in or you lead with your higher self. You lead with what your future is going to look like past these limiting beliefs, right? So that's why it's called timeline jumping, because you have to trust and jump into it from blended with, if you've been blended in with the limiting beliefs and you live a limited life of lack and insecurity, now you have to really open your eyes and look at the reality and look at the story where you can take it from an empowered stance. You only empower yourself when you take that empowered stance. And it really comes from willingness and decision to say, yes, I am ready to let go of the past that defined me in this little less in lack. And now I'm going to rewrite my narrative. So, whatever lack you feel, whatever limiting beliefs you have, like people don't like me, or right, one of the most common ones is that I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy of relationship, I'm not worthy of this, that, right? So, take whatever your dominant limiting belief is and replace it, but that replacement has to be rooted in reality. When you replace your limiting belief with something that is empowering, it has to ring true to your inner family. Hello, thank you for joining. So when you talk to yourself, you shift your language from I can't do this to I'm going to try. I'm going to take the empowered stance. Willingness is the word. I'm willing to move past, move from what happened, from the victimization of me. I'm willing to open myself up to what future has for me, for what 2025 has for me, right? So we want to be willing, available, ready to embrace 2025 with an empowered stance. And that's the first thing I will tell you. You have to love. this limiting self belief, enough to tell your inner family to let it go and relax. You are in charge. That's how you take your power back. You don't take your power back by doing external work of like impacting others and making an impression on them or arguing with them or explaining to them. You take your power back by taking a stance within yourself that you are not that identity anymore, that you are an ex victim, that you are now an adult, capable, mature, with not with wisdom and tools and community and guidance, right? So you have to talk to your inner family to create a belief that will replace that limiting belief. So that really is the first step. Second step is emotional resilience. Develop, so in this year, my prayer for you is that you develop that truth, the voice, the true voice, that you develop that emotional resilience. And emotional resilience really is the ability to navigate and bounce back from life's challenges psychologically and emotionally, nervous system wise, right? Self empowerment involves building that emotional strength to face discomfort, uncertainty, even failure without crumbling under the weight of self doubt, right? If you fail, you try again, and you fail, the failure has a lesson in it. And if you failed, it doesn't mean you're all the way back to where you were. In healing, even if you fall off the wagon or you retort back to, the skills of the bad coping mechanisms, the key is to understand that healing process is not linear, right? And give yourself that compassion and grace and space to make a mistake because you're human, and then learn from it and grow from it, right? Self empowerment will help you when you change your narrative and your identity, and you accept that you are ready, willing to move on from being the victim of your life to somebody who can create their future, who's a co creator of the relationships, of your work, of the finances, of your spiritual growth. You are in charge. So that belief is replaced, that belief of self empowerment, that I am in charge, I am creator of my own destiny, I am co creator with God. That belief comes from the self empowerment stance, that you have enough maturity, wisdom, tools, and groundedness to realize that past has defined me for so long, and now I'm doing the work every day to strengthen my nervous system with daily practices, sitting through triggers, affirming myself, loving myself, healthily managing my anger, fear, shame, toxic guilt. So when you give space to your emotions and you welcome them, but then you let them pass and you don't judge the emotion, you give yourself permission to be vulnerable while you trust that you can handle whatever emotion, circumstance that comes through, right? So that's emotional resilience. So the first step in cultivating self empowerment is reclaiming your personal narrative. The second step in cultivating your power is developing emotional resilience with strengthening your nervous system, understanding your trauma responses, sitting through your trauma responses, and then working on improving your emotional maturity, emotional expression, tolerating difficult feelings, tolerating overwhelming emotions. And emotion is not going to kill you. Emotions may feel overwhelming and they may feel like they're going to hurt you, but they will not. Emotions are not going to hurt you. What you do, propelled by those emotions, that's what's going to harm you, right? So that's the key. Understanding your emotions and expressing your emotions healthily is the key. And then number three, the third step is to set boundaries. You've got to set internal boundaries and you've got to set external boundaries, right? So, setting boundaries is definitely an act of self love, self empowerment. So, trauma survivors often struggle with boundaries. Either they become overly accommodating or they shut out other people to protect themselves, right? So, communicating to others that you have the right to say no, the right to protect your energy, the right to advocate for your needs, right? So, that communication of your needs and your boundaries comes when you really know yourself. You really have sat with yourself enough to understand, what do I need to feel safe and respected? What do I need to fulfill my emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional needs? Right? So you can only set boundaries and honor your truth if you know what the truth is, right? Speaking your truth, and speaking your truth and honoring your boundaries is your duty. So it takes time and practice. Be kind and patient with yourself, but you have a whole year ahead of you where you can sit with yourself, understand your the needs of your inner child, understand what is hurting, and meet those needs. Be bold enough to meet your needs. Be bold enough this year to honor your needs, to respect what your inner family wants, to prioritize yourself. You take your power back when you prioritize yourself and your truth and your voice and your needs above other people's, above what other people or society or conditioning is telling you to do, right? So, for those of us joining us now, let me tell you the steps again. So, let us review. Number one, how do you take your power back in 2025? So, you take your power back by number one, taking your narrative in your own hands. You don't let trauma define you. You define your life and who you are and where you're going based on your own value system, based on your preferences, your needs, your choices, right? So you become the creator of your life, and that's how you take your power back, by becoming the creator of your life, by honoring your truth, your choices, your needs, what your inner child is telling you, what your inner family, your inner teenager is telling you, what is your inner critic doing at the moment. So you don't let your inner critic run the show. You don't let the voice of inner saboteur, the voice of inner critic run the show. You run your life. How? By being your higher self, by making choices that serve your best, highest self. So in 2025, my hope and prayer for you is that you take your power back. You define what it means to be you and not let trauma, not let emotional reactivity define you. So a lot of times people give away their power by being emotionally reactive, right? When you are dysregulated, you are not in power, you are helpless, you are at the mercy of other, how they receive your emotional reactivity, right? So emotional resilience is a second step, and emotional resilience will teach you to sit through as you strengthen your nervous system with yoga, breath work, tapping, grounding, nature, right? Everybody has their own toolbox. So, when a trauma response comes up, when emotional reactivity comes up, your job is to manage and be prepared and ready. And that's powerful. When you can manage your trauma responses, when you're not phased in the face of trauma, that is how you manage your narrative, right? If your narrative is just thinking when you get triggered. If you leave that position of power, that position of truth, that position of truth, and when you leave that and you become blended in with your inner child or your inner teenager, and you just become all about emotional reactivity, getting angry or getting fearful, you have left, you're not in cahoots with your higher self anymore, the wise loving parent that guides you based on your values, right? That's not running the show. So what you do this all year, my prayer and hope for you is that you cultivate resilience every day by not letting the trauma responses take over, but you understand the trauma responses. You understand, why am I depressed, why am I anxious, why, how can I move from the victim, the hurt, the powerless, the helpless, to now an empowered adult, and move through the world in an empowered manner, right? So that's my hope and prayer for you. So, number one, rewrite your narrative to what you want to be. Number two, practice emotional resilience and cultivate emotional resilience over time by nervous system strength, daily practices that strengthen your nervous system so you can manage emotional triggers in an affirming, empowering, powerful manner. There is a lot of power in there's a lot of power in taking in sitting through the triggers and not letting the energy of the trigger dysregulate you, right? That's what empowerment is. That any trigger, anybody that comes at you, you don't let them take over your nervous system, what you say, what you do, right? When a trauma or a trigger when a trigger comes and your deep trauma is disturbed, what you do is you regulate yourself by staying grounded and for 90 seconds, letting that trigger pass so you can have access to your thinking brain. So you can think and you can act, not react. You take your power back when you act, not react, right? And then that needs a lot of discipline, right? What is boundaries? Boundaries really is discipline. Boundaries is, it's an act of self-love. And when you set boundaries, it communicates to your inner family and it communicates to others as well that you value your needs, right? You value yourself, that you are worthy and you are available. You're not going to abandon yourself for other people. You will protect your energy, you will advocate for your needs. You're not going to be swayed to betray yourself, right? You can be loving, kind, generous in relationships. You can be very giving, but you can be very self-empowered as well. Both of these things can coexist. So begin by identifying areas in your life where your boundaries are being crossed, because a lot of anxiety, depression, powerlessness, helplessness comes from where your boundaries are being crossed. So ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe and respected? Right? And then assert the boundaries in a firm, compassionate way. Empowerment doesn't say you have to be aggressive, right? You empowerment doesn't say you have to be a bully, but it requires discipline. It requires discipline of your emotions, discipline and resolve of sitting through the trigger and not letting it sway or abandon you and sway you into reactivity, right? So speaking your truth and honoring your boundaries is your duty, and it takes skill, takes time. Number four, rebuild your self trust by taking action. So this year is going to be the year of action, year of creation, year of power, year where we take our power back and sit in our power, right? So you empower yourself this year by rebuilding self trust with yourself by taking action. Self empowerment, power within yourself, really comes when you have your own back, when you're able to trust yourself. So many survivors struggle with trusting their choices. They question their decisions. They look to others to tell them what to do or what not to do, right? So empowerment, or being, even if you make mistakes, even if your decisions are wrong, right? Life is practice. That's what I say. Life is practice. So to be empowered in yourself means that you trust your wisdom and follow your intuition. So in my book, I talk about how to connect to your intuition, how to trust your own wisdom, right? So self trust is really the first step to stopping self betrayal. Let me see if there's any questions. Hello, is that Cynthia? Hi. So I'm talking about how to take your power back and create an empowered self in 2025. So far, what I've discussed is, and you can also go back and listen to this after the live, but so far, what I've discussed is, number one, you take your power back. I talked about what is self empowerment, then I talked about how to reclaim your personal narratives and the steps you can take to rewrite the narrative of your life for this year, right? So we're going to use the momentum and the change of the years and tap into that energy to rewrite our personal narrative from a place of I can't do this or she don't listen to me, and to rewrite your personal narrative from a place of power. And I, in the beginning, I showed you how to do that. Then you develop second step to tapping into your power and cultivating self-empowerment this year is emotional resilience. It's the ability to navigate and bounce back from life's challenges psychologically, emotionally, and for that we need a really strong nervous system. So we build nervous system resilience each and every day so we can sit through the triggers without reacting and still have access to thinking brain. A lot of times, most of the times, we give away our power when we are emotionally reactive. So I just got into a lot of detail on how to develop emotional resilience in this year and how to use emotional resilience and your nervous system strength to stay in your power. And then number three, I talked about how to honor your truth, how to get to know your truth, how to set internal and external boundaries, how to develop that discipline so you don't give away your power when a trigger comes or a bully comes, or that you're grounded in your truth, your internal and external boundaries, and you're still kind, patient. So I just went into details with how to do that. What we're talking about now is how to rebuild self trust by taking action. And I talked about this year is going to be year of action, where we're present with ourselves, where we take action to stay in our power. So this year we're going to consistently practice staying in our power no matter what, no matter our no matter what life sends your way. So self empowerment really is built on self trust. When we betray ourselves, even in small ways or big ways, we leak power from ourselves. So this year is going to be about cultivating power, staying in the values of self empowerment, and honoring yourself. That boosts your self confidence, self esteem, and puts you in a frequency where you attract abundance. If you sit with self doubt, self loathing, or limiting yourself, I talked a lot about limiting beliefs when I began this live. So listen to that. So when we live from our limiting beliefs, we limit ourselves. And when you limit yourself, the world will really limit you. So now your job is to empower and trust. Empowerment comes from trusting your wisdom, your intuition, your experience, giving yourself hope, strength. So the first step is to stop small self betrayals like eating the wrong things, or practicing the wrong coping mechanisms, right? Unhealthy coping mechanisms. So when you stop small and big self betrayal, you make small commitments to yourself and you follow through. You do the right thing for yourself, and you appreciate yourself, right? That's how you take your power back, by sitting in your worth and value, and with discipline. Sitting in your worth and value, and with discipline, each day consistently practicing nervous system regulation, emotional resilience, keeping promises to yourself, right? So self trust really is built on a consistent foundation of self affirming action. And that's what this year is going to be about: self affirming action, self trust, right? So action really is the word for this year: creation, empowerment. So reflection and healing and understanding ourselves is very important, and we did that. So now self empowerment requires you to come out of that passive reflection into active creation and participation of your life, and you raise that frequency enough to as far as you want to go, as big as you want to be, right? So you, every decision, every choice, every thought, every belief that you say to yourself has to align with your values, your goals, where you're headed, even if it feels scary, even if it feels not familiar, right? Trauma causes paralysis. We fawn. We're scared. Trauma gives us fear, anger, shame, guilt, right? All these big emotions. And we welcome emotions, but we learn this year we're not going to act or react out of a big emotion. We're going to sit with it and and welcome it, but really let it pass, and not have you make a decision based on how you're only feeling. You're going to check in with your higher self. You're going to do all the tools that you've learned to do the right choice, the right decision that reinforces, reaffirms you. Reaffirming your life force, reaffirming your value, your worth through action is what we're doing this year. You start. So how do you start? You start by identifying areas in your life, like your relationships, your career, your self-love, self-care routines. So break it down into actionable steps. When you If you feel disempowered at work, brainstorm ways you can advocate for yourself, rather than being reactive, passive aggressive in a relationship. Show up with a sense of agency, asking for your needs in a playful manner. Not everything has to be so serious or aggressive, or right. So you can show up in a playful but grounded. You can show up in a curious, open way, but grounded, and never letting go of your values, of your truth, of what you're about, your needs. You are the priority this year, right? That's how you empower yourself. You take the power back from others. When you prioritize yourself, is when others will also prioritize you. Because when you prioritize yourself, you tell them that I'm worthy, and and you better recognize my worth as well. For relationships to work, people have to value each other. If one person doesn't value or doesn't see the worth in other, the relationship is there's a power imbalance, there's resentments, right? So we're going to show up in our power in relationships, and almost like guide others to value you, to look at you as worthy and nothing else. Nothing else is acceptable this year. Only strong action that affirms and empowers you, right? Consistent small actions lead to big changes, and each step you take reinforces your strength, your agency, and your truth, right? So when you follow through these commitments, you begin to strengthen that muscle of self trust, and your inner family starts to believe that you will not betray them or abandon them if some other force just comes in, right? A lot of times our inner family does not talk to us because they are used to self abandonment. They know that you are not in charge of yourself. You don't have agency, that other people speak for you. Other people decide if your needs should be fulfilled or even what your needs are. That you are not connected to your inner family. Other people dictate your life, right? So the fifth step is to embrace responsibility for your life, and that's what empowerment is all about, taking responsibility for your life, for your thoughts, for your emotions, for your actions, for the circumstances, even for the outer environment, for the inner environment. If you are sulking, it's your fault. If you are sitting isolated and taking leaking your power, it's your fault. And I want you to take responsibility for all of that in your life starting tomorrow. Starting with the new year, embrace responsibility of your life, accountability of what goes down. You're not blaming yourself for the trauma or how awful other people can be, right? But you acknowledge that I have the power to stop and create change. I have the power to take action. I will find a way, right? And all this happens when you have connected to your spiritual guides and mentors and God, and right. So when your soul and your spirituality is strong, you are able to sit through a lot more and then decide. The spiritual discipline is what we're going to lead with. The emotional discipline is what we're going to lead with. The self affirmation at every single moment is what's going to happen in this year. And that's how you reclaim your power, right? So let's talk about how you can. I'm going to give you an example. For example, in a relationship, right? So if you are in a relationship where there's a power dynamic of maybe your partner is calling all the shots and you're just passively agreeing with them. Let me take a comment real quick. Cynthia says, yes, it is me. I find myself, I think I tend to think negatively about a friend. Notice it is a habit. Then I question if it is a critical parent or my intuition. Exactly. So when you have thoughts that are negative, you challenge that negative thought and you challenge that negative belief. You give the other person, unless it's a pattern, you give the other person benefit of the doubt in order to understand it, because we're trying to preserve relationships. We're not trying to cut people out, but we want interdependent relationships, right? So if you're thinking negatively about a friend, then you challenge that negative belief by giving your the friend benefit of the doubt, or grace you could call it, or understanding and patience you could call it, right? Is that really true? But many times your inner family will guide you and tell you about what other people's intentions are. I decide so many things based on what the other person's intention is in the relationship. And another thing to note is that people are not perfect. People will make mistakes, but if it is a pattern of invalidating you in a friendship, then you have to either speak up or limit contact, because it will eventually erode your self-esteem and self-confidence. Because if another person is betraying you and abandoning you and you're letting it happen, we don't do that anymore. We're not going to let other people walk all over us or be negative towards us, or jealous, right? So important to sit with it and understand where are they coming from. Is this a pattern, and should I limit contact or not take it so personally? Maybe they're not meant to be a super deep friend who understands you and is there for you. Maybe they just happen to be in your life as an acquaintance, somebody you do things with. So, with such people, very important to not be super vulnerable immediately, not bring out your inner child right away, right? Just wait and watch and see. Slowly, things reveal themselves, right? So, the judgment has to wait. The critical parent's judgment has to wait, but if your intuition is telling you clearly this is an unsafe person, then you slow down even more. You ask more questions. You ask more questions, but you slow down. Slowing down in relationships and staying respectful and boundaried is the way to cultivate deep relationships. You go from acquaintance to a friend you spend more time with, right? And see how they treat you. The way they treat you is the way it should be a part to you. How you, if you treat yourself up here, they have to treat you up here as well, with respect, with grace, patience, love, whatever it is. However you treat yourself, the other person will treat you here or above. Anything below is not acceptable, is not acceptable. If if you respect yourself, you are boundaried and you are a thoughtful person, and that's what you expect in relationships, you can communicate to them. In friendships, I love, this is what I've seen my friendships flourish when other people are thoughtful, considerate, kind. I'm an artist. I'm a kind person. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a deep feeler, right? So it's important to find your friends, your tribe, people who understand you and love you and cherish you. In 2025, we want relationships that cherish us, that see us, validate us, and celebrate us and honor us, because that's what we're going to do for ourselves this year. We're going to honor, cherish, celebrate ourselves. And in 2025, I'm going to do more YouTube, because my passion for teaching long form content is hard to do on Instagram, just other apps, just YouTube's where it's at, where I can really talk and explain and really take my time and bring you guys along, right? So as you know, my passion for teaching these things and communicating this, I like to describe and give examples. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And thank you so much for being here and, just chatting with me and coming along. Happy 2025, by the way. So happy to see you or have you here, right? So I'll give you an example. How are you going to be self empowered in relationships? So let's talk about that. So number one, this we're going to do the same 5 steps in every aspect of our life in order to contain our power so it doesn't leak, and grow our power. So when we are grounded and we raise and self-empowered is how we raise our frequency and we protect our spirit. And that's the most important thing to do, is to protect your spiritual growth. And people who align with your spirit are the ones who are going to go the distance with you, right? So, and usually that's a small group of people who understand you spiritually, honor you, honor your truth, and honor who you are, celebrate you, cherish you. That's a small group. And outside of that, there are people you enjoy things with, but you've got to keep them super boundaried, right? No human is wrong. They can be wrong for you. No human, I mean, so most people are unable to go deep, and that's a big challenge for people with depth in brain and depth in soul, is that they want friendships and relationships to have that energy. Because for people who are spiritually advanced, their energy only craves real, authentic, positive, spiritual energy. And that is hard to find. So I'm grateful you're in my circle for sure. All right, so let's talk about in a relationship, how do you reclaim your power? Right? So if you people please in your relationship and you prioritize other people's needs because you think they're going to not like you or they're going to abandon you or reject you. So, first of all, the first step for a people pleaser is to reclaim your narrative by writing down everything that is worthy about you. You are worthy, right? So, the first step to reclaiming your power is to understand that you are a worthy human being and acknowledge your worth and affirm your worth and embrace the belief of I am enough, I am worthy, I am loved, I deserve healthy, happy, loving friendships, relationships, right? So that belief, that self-affirming belief is the source of your power, right? Self empowerment or power within us, the agency comes from self trust, self affirmation constantly. Especially for people who are trauma survivors, we need to affirm ourselves, our worth, and honor ourselves daily at minimum, if not multiple times a day, right? So first you affirm your worth in the relationship. This is work you do by yourself. Then you start setting firm emotional boundaries in the relationship. Learn to speak, advocate for your needs, right? It doesn't have to be a big, you know, but you can a big like a process or a difficult process, but having your needs and you meet your needs consistently, right? So when you meet your own needs consistently, you will expect naturally other people also to meet their needs because you will meet their needs, right? So communication of boundaries clearly with respect is the second step in to create power and create interdependence in relationships. Refuse in 2025, I want you to refuse to settle for one-sided codependent dynamics. Refuse to let people treat you poorly. Because you treat yourself in such high regard, you hold yourself in such high regard, you refuse to let other people treat you poorly. And when they do, as soon as you realize it, I want you to write it down and then communicate that. The sooner you communicate a boundary violation, the sooner that trauma, that resentment, that anger will leave your body, and the sooner you will start retaining your power. Then, number three, what you can do in relationships is to take action, make decisions, right? Rather than being passive and agreeable and just like willy nilly in relationships, you don't have to be a dictator, but an active participant in your life is what we're doing in this year. Active participation in your relationships, active action in a relationship with yourself, right? So allow other people to understand you, understand your needs, and not in a clingy way, not thinking, oh my goodness, I'm too much if I say this, I'm too much if I ask for it. That's the work you need to do in step one. Understanding that your needs are valid, your wants, desires, what you have to say is valid and important. And you speak it like that. A lot of times things get lost when we speak in a tone that is really not self affirming, right? If you speak with a tone of self doubt, you will put that doubt in other person as well. And then it just becomes a game of, well, she's not important. She doesn't consider her needs important. I had no screen day. I had I never know if I should say your name or people's names in the live because I don't know if they want to be anonymous or, but anyway, so this listener said or viewer said, or my friend said. I had no screen day, and what came to surface is that I attract friends that preach, dominate, and tend to know it all. Oof, 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 oof. Then I went deeper and realized it is all the characteristics of my siblings. Oof. That's a very deep realization. I have chills. I literally have goosebumps. Yes, that is a very deep realization. Tell me if I can say your name. Yes, say my name or no. But yeah, that's a really deep realization. We do tend to attract the familiar, and we do tend to choose and settle with the familiar. Oh, I can say your name, Cynthia. Awesome. Love you. Yeah. So, this is a really big realization because you're craving for familiarity and you're craving for family, right? Your nervous system is used to that. You're used to being in that power dynamic of, but now in this year I want you to realize that you are that friend. You are the friend who can preach yourself, dominate, and you know yourself, right? So you don't need people more powerful than you anymore. There is nobody who knows you and what you need and yourself more than anybody else. But how can I get rid of them? Are you trying to get rid of the this belief, or are you trying to get rid of the friends? So you can get rid of people who don't affirm you, will go away when you keep affirming yourself. The characters. Okay, how can I get rid of this tendency to choose people and allow people who preach to me and dominate me? By stop being passive and watch for this characteristic in other people. So you will attract all kinds of people who you allow to stay, who you allow to preach to you, is what you're going to watch for. So watch for people when you start making friends and they start preaching and dominating. You can also bring up your energy at that level and send them the message that you don't need to be preached to, dominated, or told what is good for you, or told, right? So people who are full of themselves, sort of, I think you're attracting, or are attracted to you, and they read that energy of openness, that you're open to me preaching to you, right? So now you're gonna, if you like those people and you want to keep those people in your life, you're going to interrupt their pattern. You're going to interrupt their pattern of preaching to you, dominating you, and you're going to give it space. You're going to set a boundary. You can either speak it or you can act with that emotional boundary. You're going to give it distance. You're not going to sulk or pout, because that's how we're losing our power. We're not going to walk away. We're going to stay, and we're going to see if your energy, your emotional behavior, your behavior tells them that you don't need to be preached to. Don't talk to me like I'm, you're not going to go up and say, boy, don't talk to me like I'm 5 years old, right? But you're going to behave like you are 50 years old, or however old you are, right? You're going to talk, behave, act energetically with your posture, with your energy. And you know what? Let me say this: trauma survivors have difficulties doing this because we're not all about flexing. We're not about flexing, especially people who have the little sister syndrome. Yeah. So now you're going to behave not like their sister. You're not going to behave. You're going to show up as your full grown, mature self. And the moment you start feeling like, oh, they're dominating me, they're preaching to me, is the moment you start switching the script. You start showing up with energy of a grown up. You interrupt the preaching. Well, yeah, I understand, but you're not going to do it in a passive. The energy of 2025 is action. It's active, right? It's present. And if you need to take time to like recharge that energy, because we're building the power bank in ourselves this year. This year is a year of bringing building our power bank and building our life and relationships. We're not cutting people off, but we're teaching them how to treat me, right? And we're going to practice that over and over again, because we're not living to cut people off per se, unless they're narcissists, they're bullies, or they're, overly. If there's a pattern of somebody treating you poorly, of course, I want you to cut them off right away. But if it's a relationship where you don't have as much power, you're going to build that power and show up in your power with self trust, with voice, with energy and action that says, I'm a mature adult. I don't need to be preached to. Don't talk to me like that. And that's what, and don't give them that room. Don't give them the room. You be well, I don't you don't give them the room to walk over you or talk over you or behave like they know better. Don't cut them off. Tell them nicely, walk away, interrupt the pattern. That's what I'm trying to tell you. When you interrupt their pattern of this behavior, and then you say, oh, sounds a little preachy, huh? That was tiring, right? So use humor, use play, use that type of energy and engagement to really let them know that. But if they're the type of person who's always going to dominate and put you down, or if it's negative, right? If they're preaching to, if some people just like to listen to, some people just want to listen to them talk, right? But if they're preaching, the intention, always look at the intention of what the other person is trying to do. Is this all a ploy to dominate and control you, or the intention of this preaching is to help you get better, right? But you don't need them to do that. So you've got to speak. You got to show up with the adult energy in your voice, in your body language, in how you speak, and you've got to interrupt their pattern. That's how we learn to move past people who are dominating. And once people get the message, they get the message. People get the message. But if they don't change their ways, then you've got to give them longer spaces of absence. If they don't get and then follow that course. All right, so let's keep going. So to claim your power back in your relationship, what you're going to do is you're going to stop people pleasing, you're going to prioritize your own needs, and you're going to reclaim the narrative of I'm a people pleaser in relationships, or I do too much, right? You're going to get to a point of 50-50. This is reciprocation. It's a relationship, it's a friendship, it's a partnership, right? So you've got to show up with only 50% and let them meet you halfway. Set boundaries is a second step in relationships to claim your power. You have to set firm emotional boundaries in your relationship, with your energy, with your words, with advocating for your needs, right? You be the dominant one and see how it goes, right? Right. So you've got to play with different aspects in relationships, but it's hard for trauma survivors to do that because we don't have experience in it. But this is the year where we learn to take our power back, speak our truth in relationships. And those who honor you will honor your voice and honor your needs. And those are the only ones who are worth keeping in your life. People who honor your voice, respect your boundaries. And and a lot of times is how we teach them how to treat. Teach people how much crap we will take. We teach people how I will just listen to you, just go on about something, right? So take action, make decisions, and make decisions, but only make decisions from emotional resilience. In this live previously, I talked about how to cultivate emotional resilience, how to sit through the relational chaos so that you can find clarity, right? And all this begins with Self trust. So, if you show up in relationships with consistently respecting your boundaries, meeting your own emotional needs, you have self trust, you've got your own back, and every time you're disrespected, you walk. Every time there's a harmful dynamic, you walk or you distance or you go limited contact, right? So you don't open up to people right away, because in this year we learned that we're not, other people have to earn our, and they have to earn our trust, they have to earn us opening up and being vulnerable with them. You don't jump into deep friendships and then step back and be like, oh man, I shouldn't have trusted you. You trust, only trust yourself 100%, and you trust your God, and other people have to earn and build the trust in relationships together. So together, when you show up with that adult energy in relationships where you're like, I'm not taking any shit. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I don't take any. Right, so show up honoring yourself, speaking your truth, giving that energy of I don't take any BS. You cannot disrespect me and be okay. You cannot lecture me and treat me like a child. I'm not a child, right? And we can do this. We don't have to do it aggressively, but we have to do it consistently, honoring yourself. And then number five is, um, in relationships, embrace responsibility for creating and maintaining the environment, the milieu of the relationship. Healthy relationship, the environment of a relationship is created by two people. So you take responsibility for maintaining emotional resilience, pause, and choice. Wait, what did you say? Right? You don't let people get away with things. We're not doing that this year. We're not letting people say things and just sweeping it under the rug, right? You don't blame other people for your unhappiness, but you don't take disempowering behavior from them either. So you maintain, like, you show up with this condition of, even if it's not, so read this chapter, I suppose, before you walk into relationships, and empower yourself and affirm yourself. So you show up in power where nobody can see you as a disempowered individual who they can take advantage of or talk to whoever they want, right? So when you start speaking this language of self empowerment throughout this year, and in this live, I talked about earlier, what is the language of self empowerment? How do you create it? How do you practice it? When you show up and you start reclaiming your power by how you engage with yourself, your whole entire world will transform, because your inner world has transformed. You've claimed, in the live earlier I talked about how to claim your agency, how to be emotionally disciplined, how to be nervous system resilience, how to know how to sit in your power and not let a trigger spiral you in your brain or in your behavior, right? So strong internal boundaries of detachment. This is not worth my energy, and you keep walking away from that, right? So when you sit in your power, you will have more confidence, you will have more emotional freedom. You will not be in that bondage of, they said this to me, they treated me poorly. You're going to have empowerment, frees you from that hold that other people have or trauma has, right? Your relationships will improve because there will not be a power imbalance in the relationships. So as you do the work to empower yourself this year, follow these steps, follow this method every single time, over and over again, of affirming yourself, right? So let me repeat quickly the 5 steps, and then we'll end the live. So how do you practice self empowerment? How do you take the power back? Number one, you reclaim your personal narrative. Your personal narrative is not what somebody did to you or what trauma did to you. Now your identity will be defined and created by you. You tell yourself what you're capable of, and you replace the limiting beliefs with self affirming beliefs, right? So that's the first step. All right. So yeah, so you take your power back by replacing the limiting belief that you feel about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. They're not going to like me. They're not going to treat me well. So you stop that thought process. You stop that limiting belief, and you affirm yourself and say, I'm worthy. They'd be lucky to have me. I'm so smart. I'm so loving. I'm so caring. I'm so kind. I bring so much value to relationships, right? So affirming yourself over and over again, writing about it, talking about it, and showing up with that energy of emotional resilience, control over your discipline over your internal world, and then honoring yourself is your priority, right? So I talked about all this. I'm just repeating the summary, right? Honor your voice, set your boundaries. And if you haven't subscribed or turned on notifications of my live, please do that, because this year I'm going to be going live on YouTube. Like, this is so fun because Cynthia knows how much I love teaching this work, and how much I love it heals me as I help heal you, right? So I think this is going to be my format because yeah, okay, all right. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure your notifications are on, and make sure you come back and listen to it, right? So every day listen to some sort of recovery work so you stay on the path. This year we're not taking any BS, we're staying in our power, we're living self-affirming action. And you do all this by cultivating deep self trust. When your inner family truly, really, 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 really believes that you will not abandon them. And what does that mean? That you will not abandon them means you will not let anybody else or yourself get away with disrespecting you, or abusing you, or treating you poorly, right? For example, that you hold your power, and universe is the supplier. Your self love. When you read this book, my book, when you read my the five self love languages, you will realize that all you need is in you, and the book will teach you how to access the love, the power that lives inside of you. Yeah, so I'm excited to continue doing these lives and showing you how to build self trust, build your personal power by cultivating agency, by taking action, by affirming yourself, by creating that consistent foundation of self love. Alrighty, let me see if there's any questions. Let me know if there's any questions. So, my hope and prayer for you is to sit in your power and strengthen yourself and cultivate divine timing. Thank you, love. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that. We're going to sit in our power. We're going to take agency. We're going to replace the. So, people who are joining now, please listen to the live from the beginning where I talk about how to take your power back, how to cultivate agency in relationships, at work, and how to affirm yourself so you can create your best self this year. We're not going to be defined by trauma or what somebody did to us. We're going to be so discerning, have such great boundaries, emotional discipline, mental discipline this year, so we can become our best, highest self and really fall in love with yourself. When you're in love with yourself, you're just like, damn, I am so worthy, beautiful, intelligent, kind, capable, right? I've got my back. I don't need other to fulfill me. I don't need others are always a great benefit. Benefit as in they are other people are we're part of a collective, right? Human beings love connection, but to create a healthy connection, which is fulfilling, life affirming, you've got to have a healthy connection with yourself. And that's what I talk about in this live, how to build that agency, power, sovereignty, honor yourself so that others will too. Alrighty, so make sure your notification is on because I'm going to be going live maybe maybe again today. and see what comes up. I just did a podcast episode talking about my book. Hi, Micheletta. Welcome back. You love the live format. Yeah, it was so cool to talk to you yesterday as well in the live. I hope on that discussion on anxiety was helpful to you. Yes, oh my goodness. Yes, India. Happy New Year to you as well. All right, may we attract so much abundance. Okay, that's great. If the discussion on anxiety management was helpful to you, I am so grateful. I hope you are subscribed to my channel and your notification bell is on, because every time I get a minute, I'm going to be hopping on the live and just letting it come, because I think I love this format. I've been on Instagram for so long, and I had a friend who used to always tell me, you need to hop on YouTube. Instagram is so limiting. And I'm so glad I did finally, because I can really take my time and speak my truth and nurture my audience and show you guys the way, like I have shown myself the way, and so many other clients and patients. Yeah, so feel free to ask me a question or two, or I will go eat some food. And yeah, I just love to live in recovery. And this year, my hope and prayer is to just be this powerful being that pulls all the women with me and sits with that power, because women have so much power. The only problem has been that we outsource our power. We're so kind, we're like, oh yeah, we're so kind and humble divine beings, that we're like, yeah, you must know more than me. No, you're a woman and you've lived through trauma, you and survived. You know a lot more than anybody can ever teach you, right? So that belief in yourself is what we're going to strengthen all throughout this year. That's going to be my biggest theme on how to love yourself, get to know yourself, take care of yourself, and live in that power and agency, and not let anyone else define you, right? Not let anybody else tell you what to do and who you are, what your truth is. Like, get to know yourself so deeply that, and fall in love with you. Oh, thank you for the likes, or is this loves? Thank you for the hearts. I love it. Thank you, thank you. I love you guys so much. But yeah, so that's my hope and prayer, is for us to, for women to rise collectively and individually, nurture and nourish all parts of ourselves, so we can live and experience what powerful beings God has made us to be, right? So many times we give away our power because we don't believe in it, right? We believe in other people's power. We believe in, because that's how society conditioned us, that's how we were taught. But now that we are grown women and mature, we can realize ourselves. That's my hope and prayer this year. We will completely realize ourselves and learn to just live in our power and be these powerful beings that attract abundance in relationships and in money, in career, in doing what we want to do, right? Because when women are powerful, they create, they don't destruct. They create. When women are powerful, they create children, they create communities, they create goodness, they create art. Oh my God, I love Cynthia's art, is just so life affirming, you know? So yeah, all right. Love you guys. I will hop on again. So make sure your bell is on. Bye.